Hi everyone, and thank you so much for having us at a fantastic Bake Fest. I did Bake Fest actually earlier this year, and it was so much fun. It was great to meet other bakers who are so passionate about baking and who have baking businesses, and who, you know, like myself and yourself, Ami, their world is baking and food and feeding people, and it's their business. So I'm really excited to talk to everybody today. For those of you who are new to Need to Know is a podcast. It is about baking trends, everything to do with the hot topics in baking, celebrities, but then also we're going to take a deep dive during this podcast specifically for the Bake Fest audience about baking businesses and challenges that you might face. We're going to talk to two experts who have baking businesses, and we're going to also chat. I'm going to chat about my own experience having a baking business, and Ami also. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Gemma Stafford, professional chef, host of Bigger Bolder Baking, and a cookbook author. And Ami, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Oh, hi, I'm Ami Shukla, Gemma's culinary director, and also baker in my own right. We've been doing this podcast for some time. It's a lot of fun. I hope you guys get comfortable. You've had a long weekend of baking. Get comfortable. And what I want you to do is any questions that you have for myself and Ami or our guests, please take note. We're going to do Q&A at the very end of the podcast. So you have an opportunity to talk to us directly and ask your questions. So please, anything you have to say, we will get to it at the end. So we're going to start out with a little bit on the lighter side of some of our celebrity hot topics and things like that, from a segment we call Hot from the Oven. And this is where it's the lighter side of baking, when we talk about what's new, what's hot, what's going on out there in the world, because there's so much going on, especially in baking. So let's get stuck in, Ami. This is a really fantastic one. Do you know Dominique Ansel? Of course, yeah.
Mr. Cronut. He probably doesn't like to be called that. Don't call him that if you meet him. Dominique Ansel is an amazing French chef who has many bakeries in New York, and I think some in Vegas, and some pop-ups. There's one here, I think you mentioned that you went to in LA.
Yeah, delicious. It was good.
And he's the creator of the Cronut. So, which we all know. Was that 2019? No, it was way earlier than that. It was like 2012 or something. I was living in San Francisco at the time.
It's been around that long.
It's been around a long time. It has. I was living in San Francisco, and that was 2012, 2013. And I didn't have an official Cronut until we actually went to Dominique's, one of his flagship restaurants in New York there a few months ago, actually in the springtime, and we did get to taste some of his Madeleines. And one of our hot topics today is that he posted a video on TikTok of him making his famous Madeleines that apparently are one of his biggest sellers in the bakery.
Yeah, his Madeleines are delicious, and I have to say I really they're so simple. It's kind of like shortbread or a simple little snack cake or something. It's the kind of thing that I was just Gemma and I were just talking about, how when you have a big fancy dessert, you might just take a little bit, but Madeleines are one of those things you can kind of just keep eating.
You can just kind of pop them, right?
Yeah.
They're small. They're simple. And you'll see from this video, we'll put that link in the show notes, that he just does this little video about how he makes his famous Madeleines. And it's, like you said, it's simple but delicious.
Yeah, and there's also, like, surprisingly, there's a lot of technique involved in it. You know, it's not just mixing up the batter. You need to chill it, get everything nicely aged and at the right temperature. The pan has to be nice and cold so that you get that nice lift when you put it into a hot oven. So it's, you know, to really get a nice Madeleine, for people who love to bake and love a little bit of a challenge, it's surprisingly, it's interesting, and it's kind of fun to learn about how to make them.
Yeah. You know, I don't think I've ever made Madeleines.
Yeah.
My entire career, I've never made a Madeleine.
Well, I think that's.
I should try. I should put that on my list. Yeah, we should put it on the list.
Yeah.
Anyway, so my point about this video was that it was about Madeleines, but it quickly turned into something that Dominique saw that became vocally one of his pet peeves, which was this. And I get this working in professional kitchens, and I'm sure a lot of people at Bakefest who are watching, and also people at home, will get this who have worked in commercial kitchens. Snipping piping. Do you do this? Snipping piping bags and not putting the tip in the bin, just leaving it on the countertop. Do you know if you do that? I don't think you do, because I work with you.
I saw this video, and I saw that he was putting the piping bag in the tip in the garbage. And, pet peeves are so personal. I don't know that I've ever thought about the tip of a piping bag. I've piped so many cakes, and I couldn't begin to tell you what I do with the tip. I'm probably one of those people.
I don't think you are, because I work with you, and I get it. Like working in kitchens, and you have such small spaces, and working with many chefs doing different shifts. And you do notice these little things, that they didn't throw away their piping bag, or they cut off the tips and they didn't put it in the bin. Mm-hmm. But that I thought that was really funny, and that is like definitely unique to people who are used to working in the service industry and in kitchens.
Now, is that a pet peeve of yours?
No, it's not. That's not a pet peeve of mine. I'll tell you what is a pet peeve of mine. I've many, by the way, but I'll narrow it down to like two. There's one I hate seeing, and I use the word hate because I know it's a very strong word, but when I see people online, on TV, piping with piping bags, and they have their hand in the middle of the piping bag, and they're piping from the center of the piping bag, squishing out the filling, when really, I should have an example, you need to be doing is fill up your piping bag. You only need one hand, or a hand to direct the bottom of the tip, but work with one hand. Do you know what I mean by that? Yeah. Like you really, especially if it's something light like meringue or whatever, like working with one hand. But what drives me bananas, because it's such bad technique, and I see professional chefs online who get a lot of views and have a lot of followers putting their hands in the middle of the piping bag and squeezing. It's bad technique. It's not good for the filling, especially if it's something like a meringue, something aerated. And then also, it could be macarons. You're heating up the filling in the middle. So just one hand. I said this on Food Network one time, and they pulled it out and they did a video of it for a short. And people went after me about it. I'm sorry, but it's just not good technique. So you just really only need one hand and not be squishing it. That is one of my pet peeves when I see people do that. What are your pet peeves?
I feel like I spend more time annoying myself in the kitchen than anyone else annoying me. Like, I do feel like I'm not always great at cleaning up my space, and that gets on my own nerves. But I think that also speaks to I spend a lot of time by myself in the kitchen. I don't work with staff. I mean, I work for you when I'm working
and
with
I'm
you.
usually not there.
But speaking of cleaning, I do think that when somebody else, my family is in the kitchen cooking something or offers to clean up, but they only clean up halfway, and there's still stuff left in the sink, or the sink is still dirty, or the dishes are done, but the counters haven't been wiped down, that drives me crazy.
I might be guilty of that. Am I guilty of that?
Well, no, I think I'm the one who makes the biggest mess in your kitchen when I'm there. So it's probably me.
You're
like
not messy.
I annoy myself.
We don't have the biggest space in my kitchen, even though like it's a new kitchen. But the thing about you is that you work really fast. So yes. I kind of decided she works really fast. It's easier if she doesn't spend her time cleaning and just keeps on going.
Oh, that's good, because I don't like cleaning. Like I said, I really annoy myself.
But it's just easier. It's like I'll go in after and I'll put away the dishes. But because your prep is so fast, it would take me longer to mise cookies, to make cookie doughs, to all those things. I'm like, just do you.
Well, it's probably because you're like, cleaning up after yourself like any professional chef knows how to do.
Except for you, Ami.
Something to aspire to, it's always good to have something to learn.
I'll tell you a little conversation that we shouldn't have had before the show. I was telling Ami my second pet peeve, which was it's kitchen related, but not really baking related. I used to work in Ireland in a kitchen, and I used to work beside the chef who was not very friendly to me at all, and not the best chef either, which usually that kind of goes, I wasn't shocked by that information, but
he used to he had to do something in the starter section with apples, and he used to peel off the sticker and stick it on his countertop, and by the end of lunch service there could be like 10 stickers on his countertop, and it used to drive me bananas because I watched this guy, I worked right beside him, and I just thought it was lazy. And I just thought it was lazy and it was messy. And it kind of just summed up the way that I saw this guy. He wasn't organized. His section was a mess. And he used to just stick stickers on his thing. And I was telling Ami this. And I said, full disclosure, sorry, Kevin, but I said, I think Kevin does that in our house. He sticks a sticker on the counter. And then...
Sometimes I'm prepping so, in my defense, sometimes I'm prepping so fast.
No. Don't use my own words against me.
Stop to get to the garbage. But I do eventually clean up once I finish a project. But no, you know what?
Guilty.
I do have to say those produce stickers annoy me.
They are a pain.
They are. Why does every apple need a sticker?
Oh, so that's it. So I have a lot of pet peeves. We're actually, fun fact, we're going to be talking with our other guests coming up about their pet peeves. And I got a little glimpse already and they're very funny. So stay tuned for that.
Is it my turn?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
Go.
I am so excited to talk about. Okay, so I just recently found out that there is going to be a Harry Potter competitive baking show. And it's called Harry Potter Wizards of Baking. And I am a huge... Are you a fan of Harry Potter? Are you?
No.
Not really? No, okay, just wait until... Okay, yours...
I don't know why. Because I was the age for it too. I think it came out when I was like 15 or 16 or something.
Yeah, well, you might have been a little bit older, but once George gets hurt, when you're no, what I meant you.
You're aging me.
No, I mean that you might have been, I think a lot of the kids were getting into it when they were, or even 5 or 6,
really?
Young kids get into it. So
I never. I saw like half of one, and that was enough for me.
I would say if you start reading it to George once he gets a little older, yeah, you might get into it, which is exactly how I got into it.
That seems like a dad job, but go on.
They are so good. The books are so good. I've read all the books. My kids have read all the books. We've watched all the movies. I just love that world. And I think I was a little heartbroken when we were done with the books. I've missed being immersed in that world with those characters, which we really lived with for the time that we read those books.
I've ended books and thought, like, I'm not going to learn anything more about this person's life.
Yes.
That's kind of sad.
Oh, yes. So then when I found out, this show, which according to Deadline, they set their premiere date for November 14th, so it's coming up.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to be on Food Network and Max. And so I just saw the trailer, and it's incredible what the kind of creations, the cakes that people are making. They're going to go onto some of the actual film sets and locations.
Oh, wow.
So it's gonna be this incredible magical world, and then you're gonna get to see these amazing creations that people get to eat.
And these are probably like hardcore Harry Potter fans and bakers.
I think so. And then, it's going to be hosted by the actors who played Fred and George Weasley. And then they're going to have some of the actors who were in the movie, like Warwick Davis, who played Professor Flitwick. Okay. I know this doesn't mean anything to you, but
I believe
maybe to you. The actors who played Luna Lovegood, Ivana Lynch, and Bonnie Wright, who played Ginny, are going to be on the show. And they're... I don't know. I think they are probably just going to help judge, along with Carla Hall and Joseph Youssef, who are the judges. And I don't know. I just think it's going to be fun.
That sounds good.
They're so fantastical. There's so much imagery in the books. I can't wait to see what the challenges are going to be.
I think it's great. Also co-viewing, that is awesome for the whole family. But you know what? I'm thinking, I know they do genres, there's the horror baking show that we talked about previously, I think. But I don't know that they've mixed a specific movie with baking. There's been Disney baking shows, but I don't remember. I think this is the first one that I know of, an actual movie.
I mean, I'll be baking. Honest, I don't really watch competitive baking shows. I don't really watch competitive shows in general because I find them to be really stressful. And baking in general, I do so much of it during my day that when I come home and sit down, I think I don't want to watch people baking. I get really stressed out for these poor people who are working really hard, doing their best, and then they get eliminated. I just feel so sorry for them. I find it really stressful.
Yeah.
So, but I love Harry Potter so much that I think I'm going to make an exception.
That's great. That's a nice bit of upbeat news.
Yes. Well, okay. That actually makes me think, like, I've actually thought about this myself. Like, what is it that's so stressful about these baking shows for me? Is it that, and I just want to ask you, like, do you find baking itself to be competitive?
No, I find not by nature, no. And I think actually everybody listening to the podcast right now would agree that, like, it's therapeutic. And we do it because it is something that you can remove yourself for a little bit, go into the kitchen, like you said, by yourself, and just be and create and make something to feed your family and your friends and your loved ones. And it's a stress relief. I don't watch shows about kitchens like The Bear. I couldn't watch The Bear.
See, I love that show.
No.
But it feels that the fiction, it's fiction.
It is fiction. It is fiction.
I think when I see real people having real experiences and then I'm just waiting to see what's going to happen, I feel deeply invested.
Yeah,
in
it's tough.
It's hard for me to watch it, but people love it, and I think it's maybe there's something relatable about it, right? Everybody has to, and not everybody has to cook, but many people cook. A lot of people go into their kitchens and make food. It's there's something very much like, could I do that? I could do that. What would I do differently? And there's a real I don't know, there's a real personal aspect. So you've been on the other side of these baking shows, right?
Yeah.
Like I like look at the competitors and I think like, oh, I feel so bad for them. I don't think I ever think about the judges, but you've been a judge.
I have on a few shows.
Oh yeah. What shows were those again?
On Nailed It twice. I was on Nailed It on Netflix, which is a fun one. Show. Yeah, it is. Yeah. And Hulu's Baker's Dozen, with Bill Yossis and Tamara Mowry. And Best Baker in America on Food Network. And there was one. It's not easy what they put. And I know maybe people actually watching right now, I know people who were contestants on shows, not on the ones that I was on, but it's very stressful. They have you up early in the morning. They have you going all day long. There's little time to sleep. There's you're kind of removed from a connection to the outside world. And it's tough. I remember on one of the shows I did, one of the guys, like it's like really a lot of these people think, and why wouldn't you, that this could be your big break. Right. And I remember on one show as I was on, one of the guys got let go. He didn't make it to the next round. I think he might have started crying. I could see tears in his eyes. And it was really heartbreaking. Like on set, I don't know if the camera, I don't know if they saw it, but it happened in real time and I was standing right there. And I did feel awful. I did, like right then and there, it really hit me in my stomach that this is like, that was a really tough thing to have to be a part of, and the fact that we made that decision that he wasn't making it through to the next round.
Right.
So that was really tough.
Was it ever hard? Like, were you ever, when you were judging one of these shows, was it like, they're both great, they're both good, or was it, have you found it to be fairly obvious? Like,
it's kind of obvious. Yeah, there's always somebody who kind of stands out a little bit. Yeah. From the get-go, from the moment they walk in. So yeah, they kind of have a special kind of sparkle. Yeah. There's something about it. It doesn't, but then the other people who didn't make it through are also like really great and really good bakers. But the standards, and some of the shows like Best Baker in America, the standard is incredibly high. Like I remember people reaching out to me over the years and like asking me, will you be on like this baking show? And I'm like, oh God, no.
Oh, I was just going to ask you, would you be a contestant?
I'd be the first one out of there.
Oh my God.
I couldn't.
I mean,
I don't want people to know that I can't laminate doughs, that I can't put fondant on cakes. Like, no. They're better off that they think I'm like a really great, fantastic baker. And
not to show on TV.
So you don't always know, you don't know the challenges beforehand to know whether or not you should be a competitor on a show that you're...
Not before you start the show. And then it depends on the show, but often they find out in the morning. And then sometimes there might be a task that they might not find out at all. Right. So it really depends. But they don't make it easy on the contestants on all the shows. Yeah. They don't make it easy on them. It's a bit crazy. Some news. This is self-promotion. Well, why not? Because it's my podcast. Yeah. This week, I'm very excited to announce that Bigger Bolder Baking can now actually be seen. The Bold Baking Network can be seen on Delta flights between now, October, and Christmas time. So we have some stars from the Bold Baking Network on there, different shows, mine and then some other chefs. And, while you're traveling this holiday season, are you going anywhere?
Possibly. We're still sorting that out. So
if you fly Delta, you'll see this lovely face looking back at you. Check out on your next flight, or your next Delta flight, and you will see some really fun shows, perfect for the holiday season.
Will it be? When is it going to be? It's starting now.
October, and it's going to be in every what do they call it? Seat back TV.
And through the holidays?
To the holidays.
Oh, so will it be focused on holiday baking?
Yes, holiday baking. So we're really excited, and the next flight that we get, I can't wait. So if anybody sees us out there, make sure to take a little picture or a video, because we have yet to see it. But hopefully it will be on a flight soon, and I'll be able to check it out. Yeah. But that's some exciting news, a partnership with Delta Airlines. So we're really excited about that. So that was new this week, and that's it. That's our hot from the oven. Now what we're going to do is our next segment. We're going to move now into our segment called Into the Mix. Now this is more of a deep dive into the baking world, and we thought, while we're here live from the Bake Fest, knowing this audience, we thought it would be really great to talk to some experts that we have as part of the Bold Baking Network, and ourselves, we're experts too, and talk about baking businesses, which come in all different shapes and sizes now, 2024. Like, there are so many different businesses, from bakeries, from cottage bakeries, people running them out of their own house, to farmers markets, to cake business, Ami, that you're going to speak to in a little bit. I had a catering business in San Francisco many moons ago, and it's a hard slog. It can be very tricky. It can be a lot of fun, but there's some things that seem to pop up again and again, which can be can make it hard to start these baking businesses. So we're going to talk to some guests now and take a deep dive into that and answer any questions you have at the end. So we're really excited we're going to talk to Amanda Haas. And Amanda is part of the Bold Baking Network, and I've known Amanda for some time. She is an amazing chef. She's a cookbook author. She is the creator of House of Haas, and spent many years at Williams Sonoma as their culinary director, amongst many other things. Let me turn over my page now. The page was so long, I have to turn it over. Amanda has her own online cooking school and baking school. For those of you who don't know, please check her out. 73,000 followers on Instagram. And what I'm really interested about, Amanda, is you cooked Thanksgiving for the cast of Hamilton.
I did do that.
Is that the original
It was
cast?
crazy. The cast that was the traveling cast here in San Francisco, and then they did the world tour, actually. So
that is
I know,
so cool.
It was amazing.
And
it was so much fun.
I bet it was. Tell me a little bit about searing scallops for a crowd of 5,000 people with Gordon Ramsay.
With Gordon Ramsay, that was really crazy. When I was the culinary director at Williams Sonoma, I had the opportunity to do some really fun things. But within 10 days' time, Gemma, they said, you're going to go to New York and do this demo with Gordon Ramsay in front of 50 members of the press. And I didn't get to meet him beforehand. I had to mise and prep his demo 3 different ways. And then he walked in 5 minutes before we went live, and I survived that test. And so he said, oh, come cook with me. on stage at this thing called Bottle Rock the next week in Napa, which is basically music, food, and wine. So yeah, I cooked with him in front of 5,000 people and got dressed down in front of him by him in front of my boss, but survived. I did. It was so hilarious, but it ended up being an incredible experience. So I too don't think I could I would fail on a competition show, but I survived in real time with him. So I figure I'm okay.
Wow, that's a bit cheeky to invite you, to ask you to come. It's a good thing it was in your own neck of the woods as well, up in Napa. But
Absolutely.
are you, so why do you can tell me afterwards if you want, or you can share it now. Why did he dress you down?
Or why, what happened?
Yeah.
No, it was funny because you realize these people are mega stars, right? And he is so lauded as one of the best chefs around with the Michelin stars and everything else. But Bottle Rock is a really interesting thing in that it's a huge live audience. It's like being a rock star. And so he asked me to assist because Williams Sonoma sponsors this great culinary stage. And so I was, being the culinary director, I was helping a lot of people. But he'd never done anything like that before, right? So right before we went on, everyone's having a great time. It's a party. And I'm like, what can I get you? Would you like a drink? And he's like, no, I don't want a drink. I need to know that my pan is so hot up on that stage that, like, if this fails, you're in trouble, right? He was basically really nervous. And he just said, you are my eyes and ears on that stage. And he was like right here, right? He would definitely confirm this story too. I mean, there's no exaggeration here. He was in front of my boss, the president of the company. And I just said, you know what? It's going to be great. And are you ready to go have some fun? And he just kind of looked at me like, you're serious? And I said, get up there, go have a good time. And he said, you're the most important person here. And I just said, no, I'm not. You are. Get on the stage. We ended up having a blast. And he just came down and he just said, thank you. I'm so, he was super kind about it. I just think you walk up on that stage and there are 5,000 people screaming. He's like doing a new thing. So it was actually, it's a great memory.
That's, hey, could you mind? I have a little bit of a recommendation for him. Dude, show up more than 5 minutes before your segment. Like, seriously. That's why he took it out on you.
Right?
I thought chefs were supposed to be prepared.
Cold,
what else was he doing in Napa? Right? I mean, no. Anyway, interesting. Sorry now. I don't want to take up all your time. Amanda, you have such a broad background, and there's so much we could learn from you. I'm going to get straight into your top challenges for starting a food business.
Mm-hmm. I think what's been so challenging, and so many of us have figured out how to make different careers by doing things on our own and having kind of like side hustles. And so I left Williams Sonoma, that full-time job as a culinary director, to just writing my own books and really doing everything myself. And so when the pandemic hit, I had been making all of my money by working with brands, going and teaching classes and doing product videos for them, and everything was in person, right? So suddenly I'm at home thinking, how do you translate this business to something where you can't be interacting with people every day? And so I think the biggest challenge for me was to be able to take what I did in person and very quickly say, I got to figure out how to be able to do this online. And so, the obstacles of, first of all, saying literally, like, I'd say 70% of my work just dried up overnight. And so the marketing budgets went away, and it was like, how do you get creative and figure it out? So, I had one book contract during the pandemic, but for anybody who writes cookbooks for a living, you realize it just doesn't pay the bills unless you're one of the fabulous superstars around, right? Like Ina. But I just figured out I had to balance, like if I want to build an online cooking school, how much money do I want to put into that? How do I monetize it? How much do I spend like building a website and marketing versus knowing what to charge so I can actually pay the bills, right? Yeah. So it was a really interesting challenge in that it was my real life. It wasn't like it was a pet project that I was doing on the side. It was just like happening in real time. Like, how are we going to get to next month? But that being said, I kind of loved it because when you're up against things like that and you realize you can kind of flip the script and figure it out and make money doing it, that you can kind of do anything when things calm down. So it's definitely, I was pushed to figure out new things about, new job skills I never thought I would have to use or just learn.
We starting an online business, Kevin and I were in the exact same boat. It was all online, and we'd never done that before. And I guess that some people who might be tuned in right now also have online businesses. It's really hard also working for yourself and working from home.
Yes.
Because you don't ever, we didn't tune off for years, and definitely way before because we didn't have any children or anything. We didn't have George at that stage, so we just worked all the time. And then you get to a point, and it took me a good few years in to say, like, no, I have to set boundaries, and I have to set a time of day where I stop working, because it is a lot of fun and it's great to work for yourself, but it also can be exhausting. And to avoid that burnout, you kind of have to set boundaries for yourself, so you get some time to be able to think about something else or watch true crime shows.
Or watch crime shows, exactly.
Like a crazy person.
But it's, you know what? I just remember saying to everyone, this is so great because I get to set my schedule and I'll decide when I work. But it's exactly that. And then even having kids around, it was like, trying to be in your kitchen, filming something, you've had that too. You're trying to shoot something and people are around, and then you start working at totally odd hours so that you're not distracted, and you realize there aren't any boundaries. And so I definitely had that challenge as well. And it's taken me years to actually put up some guardrails, but now I'm an empty nester and suddenly it got a lot easier.
I've a little while to go until then. Right now it's quite hard. All you can see is a little blonde head running behind a counter.
Exactly.
That's interesting. For those who our business is solely online, Amanda, do you have any advice for the people in the online space and who might be doing cooking classes or even selling online or something like that?
Sure. Yeah. I think one of the things that I'm always trying to remind myself of is that you want to be nimble, right? Like, I think when I started, it was a very popular thing to have a subscription model, and it still is, right? Everything's a subscription model. And so when I was trying to figure out how to price things, it'd be like, okay, well, if I'm teaching cooking classes and I'm going to teach you twice a month, if you're just signing up for a class, $39 for 2 classes sounds amazing. But I was like, wait a second, you can go get Netflix for $11.99 a month or Hulu for $7.99. And so I had to be really nimble and say, okay, even if I think I know what this is, it might not be right and it might not stick. And so you say, okay, great. Maybe I want to try charging a la carte per classes, right? And you find that there's better traction there. But I think what's hard is that, to be a leader and run a business, a lot of times you've got to make decisions, quickly and stand by them. But sometimes you also have to say, hey, maybe this isn't right. Maybe I need to try something else. And so, for me, it's always trying to strike that balance around when do you like really trust your instincts and go, and when do you kind of take the information around you and say, I think I need to change gears here. That's constantly changing.
Just as you were saying that, I was just going to ask you a question. Because when we think about challenges, you think about the business, but you don't think about the life side of it. So challenges about balance, because I didn't have balance, I'd say, until at least a year and a half ago. And I've been doing this for 2 years. I've been doing this for 10 years.
Yeah. And the balance thing is interesting because I do think that there's something when you start out on your own, it's very easy to say that you don't have any boundaries around it, right? Or that you don't care enough if you know how to shut it down. And so it's actually been a really important business tool for me to get a grip on that, right? And I think, like you say, so we spend so much time thinking about like, what's the content I'm producing? What am I selling? What am I writing? And all of these things. But in terms of being an actual business person, especially out of your own home, or, like trying to lead people out of your own home, it's a completely different thing than if you were to go, like, I laugh now when I go to my corporate office at Williams Sonoma. Even when I ran the test kitchen, I could go to my office and get things done quietly, right? It's very different than being an entrepreneur where you're kind of doing everything from here. So it's a different set of challenges, right?
Yeah, it really is. I think it's funny because there's a saying, I think Kevin told me years ago, there's a saying like, I work 80 hours a week for myself, so I don't have to work 40 for somebody else. And like, it's really true. It's like you work so hard running your own business, no matter what the scale, it's hard. And
Right.
you do it because you're like the vision is bigger, it's for your self and your family and your future, and you make it happen. But it doesn't mean that it's easy at any point. And I think you just become, like, I don't know about you, but you kind of just become better at it. I for years, and this happened after writing 2 cookbooks. And I wonder, Amanda, did you have this experience? I became really organized, and my time management, because when you're working you're working doing a content creator or whatever it is, and then somebody, a publisher, you've signed a deal to write a book within a certain time frame, you have to do that book on top of your day-to-day work.
Exactly.
So I had to divide my day into my hours and write down exactly what I was doing, because for years, and I don't know if people out there can relate to this, but time management when you're self-employed, when you work from your own home, my time management was non-existent. And I would, if somebody called to the door, I would talk with them for an hour, but nowadays I'm like, no, you got to move on. Like, I've got stuff to do. I don't have time. Like, I need to do my work because I will be clocking off at 5 o'clock. But it's just, time management, I found something, until I got the hang of it, I was like, this is how I should be working. Work smarter, not harder.
It's so true. And you know what? It's funny. I look back because there was a point where things all came together at once. And this is how it is in our business. Like, I went from being kind of like a stay-at-home mom. I'd gone to culinary school. I was freelancing, and that started to ramp up. And then I decided to go back to work as the culinary director at Williams Sonoma. And the same week I went back full time, I got my first cookbook contract. And I was like, well, how do I do this, right? I commute, I have young kids, and I just became so good at managing my time. So I laughed at, like, when I'm the busiest is when I'm the best at managing my time. When it's like, I feel like I've got 3 different jobs. And so I have remembered that to be the one to have to put your own structure around your day like that. Always with the books, I feel that way. It's just like, how can you get really good about putting those guardrails around protecting your time, right?
Yeah.
And the social thing, you just don't have time to, those things during the day. It's not like we're just sitting around at home talking to people who come to the door.
Yeah,
right?
you have to be precious
I've
about your
learned
time.
It takes time.
It does. It took me a few years. You have to be really precious about your time. Just because you work from home doesn't mean you can just walk in and out of your house and go for a coffee and go for a walk. I had to get very vigilant about where I spent my time during the day. Yeah, that's really interesting. I can relate to a lot of that. I think time management, as somebody who's self-employed, I think once I got the hang of that, I was really able to apply it to so many different parts of my work and of my life. And that's where when I was able to do master time management, that's where I got balance. Because if I didn't have a plan for the day, if I didn't have something written down, it would be my head would be in the clouds. But when I was managing my time, then I was able to balance, because I was able to go for a facial at 3 o'clock in the afternoon like I'd planned, or an exercise class, because it had all been planned out.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing is, I'm looking at the two of you together. One of my biggest struggles was understanding when it's worth it to bring someone in financially to help you, because I just found myself doing all of the things where, I've heard so many business leaders say, and I got to go through this really very cool leadership management course at Williams Sonoma, that it's like, if someone else can be doing that job, you shouldn't be doing the job, right? But when you're starting your own business, you just do everything. And so for me, it has been this push-pull too, of knowing when to bring in someone to help me. So whether it's like, a one-day project management thing for 15 recipes that are due to a client versus, doing it all myself. Or I've taken on jobs before where it's like, for a brand where it's like, I'm not just writing the recipes, I'm photographing them, I'm doing all of the back end loading of things. And I'm thinking to myself, this is insane, right? And I've learned over time, man, it's not worth it. You have to give up some of that financially, spend it so you keep your sanity and you can manage other projects, right?
Yeah, I think that, that as a small business, as a business owner, I think that's key. That's key. And I think it's probably a burning question on people's lips is, just, letting go of control, because lots of people, and we didn't for the longest time, we couldn't afford to bring on somebody else when we started out.
Yeah, exactly.
But then
Me
it's
neither.
also now it's relinquishing control because you did all the jobs yourself. And
Right.
now you've got to bring somebody in, and they're not doing as good a job as you were doing. I would think like they're not doing as good a job as me. So then maybe you would let them go and maybe bring on somebody else. And like that's really, really hard, is the letting go, which
Yep.
really. But it's about also going through people who are not a right fit.
Yeah.
Like you have to move on. If you're working
That's
with
it.
somebody and if they're causing you more grief, I'm looking at you now, Ami, because I'm talking to you. But I don't.
Clearly she's not.
And now would be a good time
This
to
would be
tell
a good
him.
time. This is Ami's last day. But if they're causing you more
Can you
trouble,
imagine?
more grief than anything, which is not Ami.
Right.
Please don't ever
No,
leave
which
me.
is not. No.
But you have to move on. You have to, recognize that they're not a right fit for you and your business,
Yeah.
and move on straight away. And once you do that,
did
you
you
feel
ever
so
realize-
much better.
Yeah. Did you ever realize you'd be such a big people manager too? I think that's the other thing. Like I managed
Yeah.
people in a corporate atmosphere forever. But then when I came home, I'm like, oh, I run my own business. Suddenly I was like, oh, I forgot. This requires management of relationships still, right? So just because I love to cook by myself in my kitchen or bake some amazing cake for the day, it requires a ton of management of people, which I actually really love. It's just, it's not for everybody, right? So
No.
you might start your own business thinking, I just get to work in my own little container, and it
Yeah.
just usually isn't the case.
And do you have any advice on how you hire the right people?
I actually really trust my gut, and what you're saying, Gemma, is that like if it's not working, I know immediately. And I heard you two talking earlier about kitchen pet peeves and things. Like there are things that just can drive you crazy, and I try to let the little things go, but I know right away if someone has the demeanor for something or if they don't. And it's funny because I've only had one person working for me who has stuck, and it's a very crazy thing, and that some weeks I need her for 2 hours, other times I need her for 10 or 12, right? And so it requires a ton of communication between us, right? A ton of communication, and she's really good at it, but I owe that to her as well, to be clear. But I also think I just look for people who listen, who are really willing to learn, right? Because there's a lot you can teach people, but you can't really teach people's willingness to do everything, willingness to kind of always try to think one step ahead of you. So I look for more general people and social interaction skills and
Yeah.
like high, just like emotional IQ on some levels, right? I can
yeah.
forgive things if you can teach them hard skills, but it's got to be a great personality fit.
I think,
for you too.
we'll move on. Amanda, you said there to your pet peeves, because I know that you just
Yeah.
touched on it there, which is,
Yeah.
is staffing and finding people. And like
Yeah.
you just mentioned, it's people, like people who are working in a kitchen, you do need to be one step ahead of the chef.
Yep.
That's how you're going to be most effective. You need to know my next move. You need to hand me all of the tools that I need, because I can't think of everything. And you need in kitchen settings, when you work harmoniously with somebody. I remember working in a Michelin star restaurant in San Francisco, and we had the tiniest space to work, and you'd work beside each other, and you wouldn't even talk, because the docket machine was right there. You'd do the dockets and you wouldn't even talk, and you would just go boom, and they moved and you moved, and you went that way and they went that way. And sometimes it worked really well.
Right.
So that's interesting. I think, Amanda, you have a good pet peeve that you're sitting on, that
I was like,
if it's appropriate,
which
can
was-
we tell it?
I had a couple. Well, it's funny because I have some of the same. Like when I'm cooking by myself in my kitchen, I don't mind making a mess because I love focusing on just creating or writing a new recipe, right? And I know I'm going to clean it up. But if someone else is in my kitchen, I definitely have higher standards for them, right?
Yeah.
I want them to clean as they
Yeah, I
go
totally
and just
do.
like kind of keep it together. Like it's not fair. And it's same with my kids. I'm like, clean up your mess, right? So I have that one. But I was laughing too because, I've been doing so much teaching online, and this is hilarious because I get feedback from other students. A pet peeve is that there's always one student who wants everyone to know that they know everything, right? So they're kind of wanting to lead the conversation the whole time, and even if it's just on the side. And so it's kind of a funny one that I laugh at, because as a teacher, it's your job to kind of try to control the setting and keep it positive. But there are one or two people that I always hear from people about saying maybe they should be the teacher. Or do they want to be the teacher? Which is hysterical.
Maybe they should get a one-on-one class.
Exactly. It's human nature, I think.
That's hilarious.
Right? It's like Hermione Granger talking about Harry Potter. She always has the answer.
Yeah, right.
Amanda, will you come back towards the end to answer some questions for people? So if anybody has questions for Amanda, please jot them down and we'll take them at the very end. Amanda, I want everybody to know that they can find you online. Your cooking online school is amandahaascooks.com for your website, and then on Instagram, Amanda Haas. I'm saying Haas like a weirdo, so it's Haas. Excuse me.
No, Haas is Haas. You got it right.
What did I say?
Yep,
okay, excuse me.
You got it.
I said it right one time and wrong the other time. So there you go.
Okay.
HASS. Thank you. Thanks so much. And we'll talk to you soon, Amanda. Thank you so much for that.
Such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye, you too.
We're going to talk now. That was interesting.
Yeah, it was. I learned a lot.
Thank you, Amanda. So we're going to talk to Amanda soon a little bit. We're going to talk to Natalia right now.
Oh, yeah. And now we'd like to welcome Natalia Lima here to the show. Natalia is the founder and owner of Curious Cat Bakery in Florida, which is a vegan bakery. And she's got a really unique perspective on modern day shipping challenges and offering goods nationwide. Plus, Natalia was recently on an episode of Need to Know, talking a little bit about cottage bakeries and how great they can be if you're trying to start your own business.
Natalia.
Sorry. No. Sorry. I have more to say. About Natalia. She was in the top 5 best places to find vegan croissants by Veg News. She was part of the Tampa Bay's Essential Women-Owned Restaurants of 2023. She won the Best Specialty Cupcake in the St. Petersburg Best Cupcake Competition of 2023, and I want to know more about what that cupcake was. And she sold a record 1,000 croissants in a single day. So these are some pretty awesome facts.
How did you not even sell 1,000 croissants? How did you make 1,000 croissants? Vegan ones.
I still don't know, honestly. It's all a blur. We have a really big event here. I'm in St. Petersburg, Florida, in Tampa Bay, and we have one huge event called Locotopia where they bring all of the local businesses downtown and everyone has a booth. And I was like, what would be cool if we could sell 1,000 croissants. And it just became a thing. And like, the people that love my croissants locally love my croissants. So they made it their personal goal to help me do this. And they would stop throughout the day and be like, I am personally buying 5. Let's get you to that goal. It was so cute. It was amazing. So yeah, I don't even know how we made or sold. I was delirious by the end of it.
There's people tuning in from Tampa, or they just either really like Florida, but there's lots of hearts and thumbs up and stuff.
Oh, nice. We'll get through this upcoming hurricane together.
Yeah. While you still have electricity, we'll get our conversation in.
Exactly.
So Natalia, I'll talk to you, coming from a little bit of a different perspective. Amanda's business is online. You're actually a brick and mortar. And I'd love to know some of the challenges that you have faced. Because I know you said to our producer that, people, will often ask about starting a business, but don't often talk about how hard it is to start a business, and really how much goes into, how much can go wrong before it goes right. So I'd love to hear, how you some of the big obstacles that you face setting up your business and how you overcame them.
Oh goodness, how much time we have? I could talk about this for like 3 hours.
Minutes.
I'll try to keep it concise. So to give you some background, I started a bakery without having any kitchen experience or business experience. I was a publicist before this, and I was just a vegan that wanted to eat a croissant. And I was just started baking because I couldn't find anything decent to eat as a vegan, because I went vegan 15 years ago when Beyond Burgers and all that stuff was just it was the thing of dreams. It was a hard times. It was like, here's some broccoli. So I was just like, this is not going to work for me. I'm going to have to come up with something better. I started baking, and then all of a sudden my non-vegan friends are like, oh, can you make my birthday cake? Or do you mind bringing those cookies to the party? And I was like, maybe there's something here. I should start a bakery. Now I go to Google and I'm like, how to start a bakery. And I'm thinking there's going to be a neat little list, like a PDF that I can just like go checklist, go one thing by one thing. That list does not exist. It's just, figure it out. And so that was like, okay, I guess I'm figuring this out. Good thing I am a problem solver, have always been. So I'm like, okay, let's just take this one step at a time. And I'm also an extrovert, so I have no issues coming up to random strangers and saying, I don't know what I'm doing, please help me. Who do I need to talk to? And that was extremely helpful. And it was like that, talking to people who already had their businesses and talking to the city and talking to this person, that person. They were connecting me to the next step along the way. And that's how I got established, because there's so many things regarding permits, permissions that you need to have, where you're going to sell it, how you're going to sell it. And let's not even get into pricing of your items, which is like, that was probably the biggest thing. I say that during my first year in business, I was paying people to buy my stuff because I was just going by a gut feeling of like, how much should this cupcake cost? And that is not how you run a business.
No.
Ever. It was like at the end of the year, and you were talking about like how much work it goes into running your own business. And like after the first year, I'm exhausted. I've worked so many hours. And it's like, oh, I'm in the red. How is this possible? Yeah. Oh, yes. Because you're selling a cake by like, you're not even getting the ingredients in there. So figuring out like how to price things was a huge obstacle. But once that got sorted out, things got way better. Once I figured out you need a bookkeeper to help you with the math stuff, that got a lot easier. So it's just like figuring things out and just going, instead of going like, oh, I can't figure this out. I used to say like, I'm not a math person. I just can't do math. That doesn't cut it. Like if you want to run your own business, you're a math person now. So I just had to get comfortable with the idea that like, oh, those business books I never had any interest in reading, I'm going to read now. I'm going to listen to audiobooks while I'm baking. I'm going to listen to podcasts. I'm going to try to learn as much about this as I can and then bring it into my business. And that's something that I see has made a huge difference. Because people will start a bakery usually because they love to bake, right? I mean, that makes sense. You love to bake, let me start a bakery. But the moment you start your bakery, you are no longer a baker. You are a business owner. And the baking part of it is like this tiny little part of it. And everything else is running a business.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many, all the things that you said there, I'm nodding my head. The pricing, which I'd say a lot of people who are listening right now live, the pricing, getting paid for your value, like for the hours put in, for the ingredients, and like, you get paid for your ingredients maybe sometimes, but you don't get paid for the man hours, and and then you're afraid to charge, and then people are telling you you're charging too much. And I can't imagine, especially something specialty as a vegan baker, where you need more specialty ingredients, especially when you're making like vegan croissants, when you have like vegan butters and things like that. That must be like, and then like being in a market that's not LA, if you charge people $10 for a vegan croissant in LA, you're going to get your $10 because the pricing is kind of bananas here. But in Florida, I wonder, like, is it like, how was it met, or did the quality just surpass, and people were kind of like, I'll pay for the quality of the products because it's so good?
So the main thing for me was I have a spreadsheet that a friend of mine who was a business major helped me put together. And so I list all of the ingredients, how much it costs, and then it calculates for me like how much it costs to make one croissant, basically, with all the ingredients, all the man hours, and it gives me a margin, right? Once I knew that that number, whatever it was, is the number that is objectively what should be charged, I could stand behind that number and be like, this is the value, and be unapologetic about it.
Good for you. Yeah.
Because at first it was like, oh my God, I'm going, like every time I had to raise my prices because the price of ingredients went up, I would get this pit in my stomach. Like, oh my God, they're going to drop me as a client. Nobody's going to buy my stuff. And then I realized like, well, like it's a hobby or it's a business. So pick a lane. I wanted to run a business. So this is the number. And once you present it with confidence, people accept it. They also realize that it's the price of, like, if you go to Publix and buy anything right now, it's more expensive than it used to be, you know? Like you were just saying with the cookies from Chips Ahoy, you know, like prices are going up for everybody. I do get some feedback sometimes of people going like, oh, why is it, you know, a $6 croissant? And I'm like, croissants are complicated to make. They take premium ingredients. It is a premium product. If you want a Costco croissant, by all means, go to Costco. It's not going to taste as good as this one because it's not handmade. It's not made with specialty ingredients. But I find that most people, the way that I present my brand, that's also a big part of it. The way that I present my brand, the way that I present the product, I instruct my assistants, you know, we are making a premium product. That means every croissant needs to look beautiful. It needs to be presented beautifully so that people, you know, it's an experience. It's not just, you know.
And you pay for all of that. And I think definitely like my advice for have done something similar is don't be afraid to charge to get what you're worth, what your product is worth. You know, your ingredients, your hours that were put into it, the delivery, the person lives or it's shipping or whatever. Like, I mean, we pay other people for these services when we get Postmates or we get Amazon, and we pay for all these things. So why shouldn't people pay you for your baked goods when you're talking about butter that is $5 a pound? Flour is not has gone up a lot. Eggs have come down a little bit, but still, when you want good eggs, it's not cheap, and you need good eggs for your baking. So, like I would say, for those of you who are tuning in right now, are planning on starting a baking business, and I'm speaking from experience also because I went through this. I was afraid to charge people, and it's just, you know, you need to, like you said, Natalia, come from a place of confidence and of kind of authority and say, this is the price. And if you're not going to pay it, then go buy somebody else's croissant.
Then it's not your client. And a lot of my clients are wholesale. So I sell to different cafes, different restaurants. And I find that the ones that push back on the price are not my ideal client. They're usually the ones that are harder to deal with. It's probably going to be the first red flag in a very large number of red flags that are going to come up down the road. The people who are meant to be working with you are going to understand and value your time and your product.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And tell me this, Natalia, about shipping your product. Number one, do you ship to LA? Because I want one of those croissants. No, I want multiple croissants.
I do.
I do. We'll talk about that later
this week.
But what kind of struggles have you had? Because even I've had, like, you know, oh, maybe we should start to like make something and ship it. And I just like, can you have tell us what have been obstacles that you've found there? Because a baking business is one thing, but then starting a business of shipping and having to navigate all of that, and then the cost of it and the weight of it and everything. So a little tips you can give us there?
Yeah, so shipping food is interesting because you are shipping something that needs to get there fast and it needs to be cold. So basically you're talking about a heavy package that needs to be sent overnight. So it's like double whammy on all of the upcharges. And as I found out, I know so much about shipping that I never thought I was going to, have to learn in my life. But you're paying for the amount of space you basically take on the plane. So larger packages cost more. So you want to keep it concise, but then you got to put the ice packets on, and then that makes it bigger. And so it's like striking this balance of like, what kind of packaging can I have that's going to look halfway decent and is not going to be ugly and is going to get there on time and, you know, have the goods as they're supposed to be eaten. Timing it so that they don't get stuck in a warehouse over the weekend. All of these different factors, it took me years to get it right. And then when I finally thought I had it right, and I did a big launch, and I was like, we are doing this, you guys. You have, you know, I brought everyone along through my TikToks and my Instagrams, and I was like, you know, we are doing this. This is all the challenges we faced. We got this. We did a big launch. We got so many, and then later that week, I started getting the messages. I love you, but these are how the croissants arrived. And they were like squished.
Oh,
and
God.
I was just like, don't panic. Because I just felt awful. And so I took a huge hit on my bottom line because I refunded everyone that had a problem.
You'd have to.
And I was like, refund, I'm so sorry, I will take care of this. And then I sent them a new package. Basically I did some, you know, research on Reddit boards, TikToks, like all the kind of like non-official sources to try to get the insider point of view of people that worked at FedEx and UPS. And this is what people are saying. Like, this is not my opinion, this is what I read on TikTok and other places, but people were saying like, oh yeah, like these boxes, like we kick them into the truck or we like throw them into the machine and like a human never handles it. So like it doesn't matter that there's a fragile sticker. Literally no one's looking at it. I'm like, cool. Oh, I'm so glad that I took all that time to like lovingly pack these croissants. So I had to figure out a way to like double box it so they don't get crushed. I was literally putting croissants in a box and jumping on top of them to make sure they wouldn't get crushed by a machine or somebody else throwing them, jumping on them, you know, doing whatever. And since then we've had
Natalia, you're my kind of crazy and I like it.
You have to be.
You do have to be crazy. Crazy like a fox.
You do. No, you have to be crazy to, like, if you start your own business, you quickly realize, like, only the crazy survive. It's a special brand of crazy.
That's very true. You do have to also be a hardworking, determined, and a little bit crazy.
Just a little bit. Just a little dash. A little sprinkle of crazy.
That's hilarious. Natalia, I could talk to you for much longer, but I'm going to ask, will you stick around so people who are tuned in right now can ask you questions about your business and brick and mortar and any questions that they have specific to you?
Yes, of course.
That'd be great. Wow, that was so funny.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Natalia. We'll talk to you really soon.
Yep.
So Natalia, like she said, her brick and mortar is in Florida. It's the Curious Cat Bakery and her website is curiouscatbakery.com. And she's also on Instagram, YouTube. She mentioned TikTok there, Curious Cat Bakery. Go follow her. I think it's entertaining and you'll see some good food. And I don't think you have to be vegan to do it, to follow her.
Oh, no.
No.
And I actually would love to try a vegan croissant.
Yeah,
let's
get those. I think she's gonna hook us up.
Oh, fantastic.
Okie dokie. Oh, actually, you know what? We're going to talk a little bit now about our personal experience, and then we're going to get into the questions. So we'll keep this kind of tight.
Oh yeah. So Gemma, I was just thinking that I'm learning so much about all of these different experiences, and I was just sort of thinking that we talk all the time about everything, but I feel like there's like some things about your past catering business that I don't really know much about, and even going further back, what drew you to wanting to become a chef in the first place?
Food was always my passion. Always. It was the only thing I ever wanted. I wanted to do two things, actually. That's not true. I wanted to be a chef, or I'd be a teacher. So ever since a young child, I wanted to be a chef. So I knew that I went to college to train to be a chef. And they always say that you change your career, is it 9 times or something? I can't remember that number now. Kev, if he was here, he'd tell me. But I've always only ever been a chef. One time I worked in retail in a food shop, and that was a hard no. But I've pretty much only ever been a chef. So all my businesses I've been in kitchens, standard kitchens, but I did have a catering business when I was like around 26 or so, 27, and I feel a little bit different to the ladies that we just spoke to because I was quite young. I was single, living in a house in San Francisco. I rented a room and I lived with like 3 other girls and we were all like mid-20s. I had all the time in the world, and I started a catering business, specifically catering to tech companies in San Francisco, and this was 2009, so money was flowing in the city. And I was determined to stay. I didn't know anybody when I moved to San Francisco. I was determined to stay there. I didn't want to go home to Ireland. I started this catering business after working a year in a Michelin star restaurant. I couldn't afford to keep working in the restaurant, so I literally had to quit my job. And I didn't have to start my own business, but I did.
You weren't making enough money working
No.
in the restaurant. So
No.
is that why you started your own business?
Yeah, I couldn't afford to work
So
in that
it
restaurant.
wasn't like you didn't start out thinking, I'm going to go to culinary school and then start my own business. You started out thinking you would be working in restaurants and then pivoted.
No, I worked so I went to college. I worked in kitchens in Ireland. I worked as a pastry chef in Italy, in Australia, and then I came to America. So I worked in kitchens for around 10 years. Mm-hmm. It was when I was working in the Michelin star restaurant in San Francisco that I realized I couldn't afford to work there anymore because I wasn't getting paid enough. I was making minimum wage, which back then was $11 like an hour. And even though I rented a room smaller than the room we're in right now, by the way, around half the size of this room, I rented in San Francisco for $600 a month, and I could barely afford my rent. So I quit my job. I went on Craigslist, as you did in like 2009. It was still creepy back then, but you could find jobs, especially if you worked in food. And I found a client that was looking for catering, and long story short, from there, I built kind of other clientele from that client, and I became a breakfast caterer who catered for tech companies, which was super random. But the one thing I will tell people, just for those of you who are starting businesses or fear about like what you don't know, I'll tell you what I did know. I knew food. I knew how to make good food. I was very hardworking, and I was very determined. Mm-hmm. Those were the 3 things that I was. I was a good chef. I was very determined. I was very hardworking, and I would have done anything to make my business successful. I was 26 years of age. I had all the time in the world. I was like, I lived in a shared house. I didn't have a child. I was single.
Did you have employees?
The girls I lived with. Which was, if you had met these girls, oh my gosh, they were a good time. These girls were a good time. But man, were they hard to get up out of bed at 6 a.m. to go into an office in downtown San Francisco. But here's the thing. I didn't, and that was a good question, because I didn't know how to scale my business except to hire the girls that lived with me. I had no business background, but still I started the business, I grew the business, and I earned within a few months. Oh gosh, I earned probably 10 times the amount that I earned in kitchens. Mm-hmm. I made it work. I had no business background. I had no idea about starting a business. I had no money to start a business. Let me tell you something. Ireland was going through a recession. I was in San Francisco. I was living paycheck to paycheck. And at that point, I didn't have a paycheck because I'd quit my job. I had $60. I went down and I bought some supplies to do catering, like to start catering with. I bought I think a weighing scale that I got at a Goodwill. I bought an ice box to like transport food around, stuff like that. I bought an immersion blender. And I started the business. And although I wasn't able to scale it, because at that point, I did this all from my house in San Francisco. I didn't I didn't know how to scale at that point. I know better now, but it is something that I feel like is, when you're starting a business, is a very hard thing to do, is to figure out how to scale and how to go beyond yourself. And I did not have the money to bring in anybody else. But for the time that I did it for around 2.5 years or so. I had a great time. It was very flexible. I got to do what I love every day, which is to bake and cook for people and feed people. I went in at 6 o'clock. No, I didn't. I went in at 7 o'clock in the morning. I was out of there by 10. It was a really, really fun time. But my point is that don't focus on the things that you don't have. Don't focus on the fact that you might not have funding. Don't focus on the fact that you might only have 2 employees. You know what? The right employees are better than 5 employees. So, don't focus on the things that you don't have. Don't focus that maybe you failed your business course. Maybe you don't, maybe there's other people in your category of cake decorating or cookie baking or whatever that you feel like be better than you. I will say, something I heard recently is focus your mind and your chi will follow. And it was just I put it out there into the universe that this business is going to work. I am not going back to Ireland. Yeah. And my mom was like, if it all fails, come home. And I was like, oh, hell no, Mom, this is work. I'm going to work and make it work. And I made it work.
So how did you get the word out? How did you grow your business? Was it online?
No.
Or was it, okay. So how?
It should have been back then. It was 2009. I grew it because clients, I worked in a big office and I got clients from clients. And then also some friends of people that I knew, but it was mostly clients who'd come into the office who had tasted and had breakfast, had some meal, and then I went over and did their office. So it was a lot of fun, but I really enjoyed it. And we can talk more about that at the end. And I know that you did something quite unique also, and I feel there might be people tuned in right now who might also be doing business, which is creating custom cakes.
Oh yeah. So I do have a very small word of mouth business, creating custom cakes, shaped cakes. And this mostly just started because I'm a self-taught baker. I did not go to culinary school, but love food, have always cooked a lot, have always baked a lot, and started baking theme cakes for my kids, for their birthday parties. And then people would start ordering them from me. And it was always very fun, sort of oh, can I do this? Is this going to fall over? Can I make this shape? Can I realize this idea?
Yeah.
My angle was always well, everything I do is made from scratch. Everything tastes really good, no matter how fantastical it looks. It has to, when you eat it, it has to be the very best cake you will have ever had. And, I have a lot of ego wrapped up in that. So it is, it's small, it's word of mouth. And I think one of my biggest challenges is that I haven't tried very hard to grow the business beyond, every now and then I'll still get cake orders, which are really fun for me. But I have a hard time charging what I think they're worth, because it's not only the ingredients, and I will always get the best of everything. It's the time, the hours. I will never get back. I can't really charge for the hours that it takes me, or maybe I can, but I feel like for the hours it takes me to conceptualize, design, think about, gather the ingredients, make the layers, build the cake, figure out what to put it in, all of that sort of stuff. I mean, I feel like even the smallest cakes would be hundreds of dollars.
Even the boxes, when you order cake boxes, I want to say, when you were imparting wisdom on us. But it's you can't, and I think that's going to be a big thing when we take our questions now in a few minutes. I think that's a big thing, and I think Natalia said it and Amanda said it, which is getting what you're worth and pricing.
Yes, it's definitely not easy, and I think in a way you sort of think, if I'm enjoying designing this cake, and I've spent 4 hours trying to think about what I'm going to do, am I really charging for that time? That feels like, at what point is it for you, and what point is it really you're doing this, and what's fair and what's not fair, and what is someone willing to spend?
Yeah.
I mean, in the end, you can always go to the grocery store and get a cake from there.
Yeah.
Like if you want a custom cake, you should pay for it. But then what are the expectations around it? I still don't feel like
It's a struggle.
Yeah.
And then, it's a real struggle. I think we're going to move now into our Q&A, into our hotline. So this is the Bold Baking Hotline. We do this at the end of every Need to Know episode. And we take questions from the audience, and we're hoping that you guys have some lined up for us. Amanda and Natalia are still here to share their wisdom with us, as Ami and I'll get the ball rolling, because I thought this was a great one. Amanda, this is for you. After spending so much time at Williams Sonoma, do you have, and Williams Sonoma, I always say, does everybody always say Williams Sonoma? Everybody does.
They say all kinds of things.
It was
Williams
for years. I didn't know there was an
Sonoma.
S on the end. Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay.
Do you have any kitchen tools that you can't live without? I know my one. We should all go around the room.
Oh my God.
What's
You go
yours?
first. You go first.
A microplane.
Oh, I love my microplane. It's in my top 5.
Yeah,
But my
because I
number
use
one-
it for everything. For chocolate, for
Everything.
cheese, for garlic, for zest. I use it for everything.
Bingo. Me too. But my number one is a fish spatula. I'm obsessed with it because I use it for
the little
everything.
dip.
It's so thin. Yeah, a dip.
Yeah.
And so like take a cookie off a sheet. It's for so many more things. I always joke it's misbranded as a fish spatula. It's just like the friendliest spatula you'll ever use. For pancakes, it's so amazing. It's just, I use it for everything.
Do you know
It's my tool.
Sur La Table used to sell this really thin plastic, but it was a good plastic. It was heat resistant.
Yeah.
This really thin spatula that was for pancakes, and it was like paper thin. And because I used my
Right.
business, my catering business, I did breakfast, so I did thousands of pancakes, and I got these down in the Embarcadero, down in the Westfield, downtown San Francisco.
Yeah.
And
Oh my gosh,
it would
that's
just
crazy.
go right underneath and flip
Yes.
over, and it was small
Yes.
too. That was
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah,
Did the job. That's my number one. Microplane would be my second. That's funny. That's
microplane.
yours
Yeah,
too,
and
Gemma.
a weighing scales too. I won't keep. You go. Did I just say
Oh,
your one?
yeah.
that was
makes
mine.
sense.
Sorry.
I do love my kitchen scale and would
Yeah.
not live without it. I think everyone should have a kitchen scale, and I honestly think all recipes should just be written in weight. It's really just the best way.
I will tell you, when I started my business and I had no money, a friend of mine gave me, who was a nurse in San Francisco, gave me a $50 voucher for Williams Sonoma down in the square, and I went down and I got an OXO weighing scales, digital weighing scales.
A big
And
deal, right?
I had it for years until somebody working with me put it on top of my cooker, and the heat came up from the cooker and it went janky. But anyway, I did have it for years and years and years, and it was one of the best things I ever bought. I was like, $50 is a lot, and I was like, this is a gift. I have to
lot.
make really good use of this. And it changed, because before that I literally had a little weighing scale with a little bowl that I got in the Tenderloin on Geary Street in Goodwill. This is the craziness that I
Not
did.
a digital scale.
Yeah.
Just
No,
like
it was not digital scale.
No,
it had a
just
little bowl, and it
literally
could
trying to
hold
get
like
the
2
ounces.
pounds of weight. I was feeding like 50 engineers in the morning. I was like, do. Talk about time management and doing stuff you shouldn't be doing. Listen to everything that I'm telling you and do the opposite of that for your business.
Exactly. I love it.
What about you, Natalia?
Yeah.
What's your
I was gonna say a scale too. That's big. Also parchment paper, I feel like is undervalued in the kitchen. I feel like they are so much better. Like they have the pre-cut ones for the cake pans. And like that is so much better than using the Silpat and like other forms of, or coating the pan. Like I use parchment paper for everything. It's amazing.
The pre-cut round ones, like that's where it's at.
Yeah.
You just got a thumbs up for that one. You're getting lots of thumbs up. I'm going to say something to get myself a thumbs up. That's really interesting. I do have Natalia for you. This is actually we have a post on biggerbolderbaking.com about egg substitutes, and for years it was out of like 2,000 posts, our number one post. What do you consider to be the best egg substitutes in vegan baking? And I do know that it does depend on what you're baking. But in general, like I have a pretty good vibe of like what I've found work. Like Ami and I have done tests here. What do you think?
So yeah, that's the answer that nobody wants to hear, is that it depends. There's not like one thing that you can do that's just like, oh yeah, this works exactly the same. The answer is that you have to figure out what the egg is doing in that recipe, whether it's giving you height, or if it's a binding agent, or if it's there to add moisture, and then use whatever fits best. I have to plug myself here for a second, but it really is the best way. I have so many videos about this on YouTube and gonna be in the Bold Baking Network, but I break it down in detail. But I would say, to summarize, for cakes, I really like vinegar and baking soda.
Oh,
they react.
Yeah.
The vinegar reacts, it creates the bubbles and it makes it rise. So that really helps. And the taste of vinegar disappears, I promise. Your cake will not taste like vinegar. I'll tell you one that I don't like. It's flaxseed.
I knew you were going to say
tried
that.
it. I'm sorry.
I knew you were going to say it because that was my one.
I don't know. I've tried it with so many different recipes, and all I got was goopy something.
Okay.
And it's just not for me. It's just not for me.
I did not have a great experience.
So you like flaxseed?
Say that again, Natalia?
You like the flaxseed?
I thought it was good, Ami.
I remember
in
it
the
didn't
pound cake. It wasn't great.
We tried it with a pound cake,
and you could see it in the pound cake.
It did not rise very well. It was kind of dense, and it was a little.
That one was dense,
a little gummy. I'd have to go back.
The pound cake was hard, but we've done it in other stuff, and I know it's worked well, like pancakes and stuff like that. We give a lot of options. One of the options I don't think I gave is actually the baking soda and vinegar. And that's a really, really good one. I like that a lot. Come here to me.
It will give you a very fluffy, moist cake, which is the kind of the cake that I like.
Yeah.
For muffins, I think applesauce is a great one, because then it's denser.
Yeah.
It's a little,
and it doesn't taste.
It's not as airy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my next question, was how do you ensure that vegan cakes are moist and fluffy? And you said without using eggs, and you said the baking soda and vinegar. Mm-hmm. Amanda, you've been doing Instagram lives lately, and we have a great question here. How does going live on platforms help you build, retain, and find a new audience?
Ooh, I love that.
That's a lot of questions in one. You can just choose one of those.
But you know why I love it? I don't know who knows that about me or who came up with the question, but I kind of have the exact opposite use of social media. I like to use it to engage with people when I feel like engaging in real time.
Yeah.
And I think it just feels more authentic to me. And so I have been trying to do more lives, but the coolest thing is I don't really focus on getting some huge number, right? Like it would be great to get 100K. I don't know what that means for sponsorships and other things, but the people who follow me end up hanging around because they know that if I'm going to get on there, it's to show them something I really care about. Or like, I'll just be messing around in my own kitchen. I'm like, oh, I should go live right now because I want to learn this, right? Mm-hmm. So I use it truly just to be myself. And I think that is actually the best part of it. Like, I usually don't even get the great pictures to post because I'm too busy in the moment. And I like sharing that with people. So that's kind of my trend. Like, I tune out all that noise about like, you should be doing this and this and this. I'm like, let's just be live and hang out and let people ask questions in real time. And it's a blast.
Yeah. It's funny because we're told all these things that you should do and don't do. And then 6 months later, it all changes. And then you're supposed to do, now you're supposed to do those things that you were told not to do. But definitely just doing it when suits you, doing it when you're in a comfortable moment and having fun, like that resonates like nobody's business.
Right.
There's probably a lot of people who are tuned in right now who are trying to build a brand, take a brand that they have from their kitchen and build it online. And we've seen so many fantastic examples of that with like surge in cottage bakeries across the world, which I have to say, as a young, because when I was 20 or in my early 20s, I wanted to do catering out of my mom's kitchen in Ireland. And I just think if I wasn't doing what I was doing right now, like I'm the exact, like I would absolutely want a cottage bakery. That's all I wanted to do. Was to cook out of my own home and like sell it by the front door. I'm obsessed with watching these people on Instagram do that.
Love it.
Talk about a lot of work. It's
Yeah,
crazy. Yeah. I follow this girl, oh shoot, what's her name? Sourdough something. I shouldn't have started that conversation now because I can't remember her name.
She makes sourdough bread.
She does, and she makes like 40 loaves, and she has a domestic oven.
Wow.
Crazy. Didn't you do that, Natalia? Didn't you have a cottage bakery?
Yeah, that's how I started, and just to see how this would go. And I think it's a great way for people to figure out if this is really what they want to do, because it's very different baking one sourdough loaf and baking 40.
Yeah.
Like you realize really quickly that it's not this romantic notion of like, let me put my apron and go into my beautiful kitchen. Like there was one Christmas season that my husband picked up his parents at the airport, and they walked in and there was literal batter on the ceiling. And I looked like a deranged woman. And I was like, I'm late on orders. There are too many cakes that I committed to making. And it was just like, you realize really quickly that running a bakery is not this romantic notion that we see in Hallmark movies. And it's actually a lot of work. So I feel like the cottage baking gives you that opportunity without having to commit to a lease and, getting all this professional equipment. Like you can start in your oven and your fridge, but then as you grow, things are going to start getting tight.
Yeah, very true. That's fascinating. And Natalia, what's the secret to achieving a rich and creamy texture in vegan frosting? And do you use just vegan butter in vegan frosting, or are there more things that I should know?
Yes, just vegan butter. I like using Fallon's, the soy-free spread. I think that's a really great one. I've tried so many different ones. I've done a test with all of the different brands. That's the one that sticks out as the real like 1-to-1 comparison. And sift your icing sugar.
Yeah, right.
As you pour it into the bowl.
Super important. I always say that.
Yeah, and keep it cold. When people are like, "Oh, I had a birthday party and the cupcakes started melting because they were vegan," like, no, it's because it's butter. Like buttercream melts if it's in the sun.
Wow.
So yeah, I say those two things. Make sure that you use the right kind of vegan substitute, because there's so many different ones. Try to stay away from anything with coconut oil, because that's not like, just think of how coconut oil melts in your hand, just like our body temperature is hot enough to melt it. So you want something with a lower melting point.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never thought of that. Coconut oil melts fast. Okie dokie. I think, ladies, what we're going to do is wrap it up now, and I'll probably get hearts for that. But I think what we're going to do is, before we leave, just for any words, Amanda, we'll start with you, that you'd like to just share with the folks at the Bake Fest, and then also the need to know listeners who are listening after the fact, about people who are have started or want to start a food business, be it online or brick and mortar or whatever it is. One piece of advice that you would have for them.
I love this question because I just really enjoyed listening to all three of you, and I was trying to draw comparisons, and I think it's grit. It's this tenacity to not quit. And so even Natalia's examples of like jumping on the croissants, right? Like you have to want it more than everybody else, I think. And honestly, I think that is a huge predictor of success, is just saying, I'm not going to give up until I figure this out. I really do. I just listened to all three of you. I'm like, yeah, none of you were giving up in any of those situations.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You have to want it more than the next person. Oh my gosh, like when I was broke in San Francisco and I needed to like get more work from certain clients, like I got it because I had no choice but to not to. And I think a lot of people will relate to that. That's a really good point. Natalia, You have to give a different answer. No, I'm messing, you don't.
I would say just start. I feel like a lot of people dream up and they're like, maybe one day I'll start a food business. I always wanted to own a bakery. I'm like, why don't you? Just start. You can start in your own kitchen. You can start, if you want to be a creator, you can just start. Social media is there waiting for you. Worst thing you can do is that you don't succeed right away. And so what? I'm a big advocate of like, if you tell me you have a dream, I'm going to be cheering you on and holding you accountable to make sure you're doing the thing to follow that dream. Like, so what if people think you look stupid? Like, yeah, you're doing more than them, You got to go out there and just get started and take every lesson that you learn not as a failure, but okay, now I know how not to do that thing. Yeah. And I won't make that mistake anymore.
I love that, Natalia. A friend of mine once told me, she was like, nobody ever remembers the bad ideas. No one has time, so go ahead and throw your ideas out there. Don't worry about looking stupid, because if it doesn't work, everyone's moving on. People are going to latch onto the stuff that's good. And
nobody's paying that much attention to you as you think they are. Like, no one is like watching there to see how embarrassing you look. Like, no, that's all in your head. So get over it and just get started.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Ami, what's yours?
My biggest advice, let me think about that. You go first.
Okay. So I agree with both of you. I think what one thing that so I did when I started Bigger Bolder Baking, that was online, so everybody saw as I was learning. And that was, I didn't pay too much attention to what people thought. I really couldn't. Like, there was some nasty comments out there, but I just couldn't focus on them, because people are free to write whatever they want online, unfortunately, for the good and the bad and the ugly. And but I will say that one thing that Kevin and I, when we started this, my husband, was while we were a small channel of like 300 followers 10 years ago, and there was very few people watching, we said, when we make our mistakes, and we will, let's make them early and move on, learn from them and move on. So we learned, because it was our biggest focus. I got hearts. Aww.
You got so many hearts.
They might have been feeling sorry for me, but anyway, I'll take it. But it was like, when you make your mistakes, learn from them and move on. Learn fast. If you've hired the wrong person, then move on to another person. If you feel like Amanda said about your gut probably is your compass. Is like, that will guide you to the right direction. Mm-hmm. A lot of it is gut. It's hard work, and but it is, after all that, I think we can all agree that it's no matter what it is that you're doing, if you're doing the right thing for you, it's very rewarding.
Yes. And I mean, I think that would probably be like my bit of advice is, there's so many different things about like what you should be doing, what people want. And, if you're really using yourself and what you love and what moves you and what what inspires you to put out there, I think people respond to that authenticity. And that is something that's just going to keep you going. Yeah. Food that inspires you, that you want to share, and building on that, always going back to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Ladies, thank you so much. That was really lovely. What a nice way to spend a Sunday afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was really lovely. I hope people learned a lot, because that was fantastic. We're going to wrap things up here. I would like to say a big thank you to Steph, to everybody at the Bake Fest. Thank you to Kate. Thank you particularly people who joined the Bake Fest for this holiday season. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, for listening, for being here. It really was a lot of fun. Yeah. It was, wasn't it, Ami?
Yeah, it was.
And for those of you who are new to Need to Know, it's not usually doesn't run as long, but it can be a lot of fun. Please subscribe to Need to Know podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. Follow myself and Bigger Bolder Baking at Bigger Bolder Baking. Thank you so much to our guests. Thank you to Ami. Thank you to the Bake Fest and everybody who tuned in. It was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it. From HRN and the Bold Baking Network, you are watching the Need to Know Baking Entertainment podcast.